What's up everyone, welcome back to more Reddit stories about crazy people, Karens, and all that kind of stuff. Hope you're all doing awesome today. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't yet for more Reddit content, and we're getting right into today's stories. Post someone else's personal information online, get fired from your law firm. I'm a college student. I was heading between classes early this week and got a call from my state's unemployment office asking me to finish my claim. I didn't file a claim. Turns out the claim was for someone else, so I took the name down and ended the call. I live in one of the larger cities in my state, and we have a community Facebook group where we share questions about events, hours for businesses, and general memes and jokes about nonsense that happens in our city. I decided to post an inquiry asking if anyone knew someone by that name who had applied for unemployment. I wanted them to get their claim finished so they could get paid as soon as possible. And with only their name, which was a really common name, Facebook search and the yellow pages did nothing for me. Enter Karen. Karen comments relatively quickly on my post, bragging that at her job she has access to tons of people's personal information, and she pasted some guy's information in the comments. She ended her comment by bragging about being able to use their system outside of work and on personal time for personal reasons, and that she hadn't been caught. She posted this on a public Facebook group. Right away, people replied to her and said she shouldn't be bragging about essentially misusing their system for personal use, and that information security breaches could be a huge problem if she does it on her home network. As someone with an IT background, I sprang into action. I screenshotted everything she said and my original posts for safekeeping. I then looked up her name on LinkedIn. Turns out she works for the most powerful law firm in my city as an office manager. The American Bar Association has very strict rules regarding safeguarding client information. I gathered all my information and screenshots and even a screenshot from the Bar Association website and sent it through the contact form on their website. I also sent the same information to the head counsel and the president of the law firm. Not 10 minutes later, I get a Facebook message from Karen with a screenshot of my contact form saying, "Nice try." She then blocked me on Facebook. But then, the next day I get a message from a legal assistant at the law firm. She is very concerned and wants to find out what happened. I explain everything and that she was bragging about this publicly. She thanked me for my time and said that an internal investigation would happen immediately, and that they handle any information security complaints like this very seriously. I never got an update from the law firm, and it's been about 5 days, but when I Google Karen's LinkedIn page again, it was gone. I think it's safe to say that Karen will no longer be using her access to client information for personal use anymore. To the random guy who needed to finish his unemployment claim, I hope you got paid. Cruise ship terror. It's day 1 of a 7-day cruise, and everyone is boarding and trying to get their bearings and general orientation of the ship. My wife and I asked for directions to our cabins so we could drop off the few small bags we carried on with us. As the crew member who was stationed near the lobby area of the elevators gave us directions, another guest and his wife overheard as they passed by, and I heard the gentleman say to his wife, "How stupid do you have to be to not understand that if your cabin number starts with a 7, it means your cabin is on deck 7? I let that one go. We all waited for the next available elevator, and when it arrived, a few people hopped on, including the asshat that mumbled about us being stupid for inquiring about the location of our cabin. As my wife and I gathered our bags to join them, I asked for someone to hold the doors, but was greeted by the same voice declaring, "Sucks to be you," and watched as he purposely reached for the elevator floor buttons, encouraging the doors to close in our faces. Taking the next elevator, we made it to our cabin and dropped off our bags and got acquainted with our room. I noticed how simple the remote control to the generic flat-screen television was. Very basic, and for some reason that struck me as interesting for such a luxurious ship. We left the room and went up to Lido Deck for a quick lunchtime buffet. It was there that I saw Mr. Asshat without him seeing me. I kept an eye on him with the purpose of simply being able to avoid him, but then I decided that I would really like to know where their cabin was. I didn't know at the time why. I just concluded that that information would probably be good to have. So I excused myself from my wife and followed them undetected until I discovered the location of their cabin. Thankfully, that did not take long because that was their next stop. They were 1 floor below our floor and nearly in the same position but on the opposite side of the ship. After that, I was relieved that we would probably not have very many more encounters with them, and quickly rejoined my wife. My wife and I spend a lot of time in casinos, and this trip was going to be no different. So after dinner that night, we freshened up for a long night gambling that would most likely not end until about 3 or 4 in the morning. While waiting for my wife to get ready, I began examining that remote control again, and I deduced that those overly simple TV remotes were probably the same in every cabin, and as such, the remotes would probably work on any TV on the ship if they were brought close enough. I put the remote control in my pocket and we went to the casino. At approximately 3:30 in the morning that night, I tested my theory. I visited the door of Asshat's cabin and pressed the remote control against it and hit the power button. To my delight, the television sprung to life inside their cabin, and I could see the blinding light of it from under their door. The volume buttons worked just as effectively as the power button, and the volume on their TV reached maximum level in a quick second. I listened as startled people jumped from their bed and scrambled to find their own remote to shut down the disturbance. It was my pure bliss for 7 straight nights to shock them from their slumber with no one the wiser, because why would they ever suspect it was caused by anything outside their cabin? My husband was accused of being a creep at the park with our daughter. She called the cops. I am livid. The title mostly sums it up, but here's the long version. I somehow never thought I'd have to post here, and yet here I am. I am homesick with kid crud, but we promised our 6-year-old daughter a trip to the local park this weekend. After Hurricane Helene scaring the hell out of us all, it being a meetup spot for her classmates, they canceled school on Friday, and a beautiful day we decided I'd stay home, take some cold meds, and rest, while my husband took our daughter to the park. 30 minutes into her playing and having a blast, a rabid older lady approached my husband, who was just sitting at a picnic table supervising, demanding to know where his child was and why he's been, quote, filming and photographing random children. He only photographed our daughter. Other kids in the background were blurred, portrait mode. He showed her a few pictures. He's very mild-mannered and non-confrontational, and pointed to our child and said, "That's my daughter, such and such." Upon hearing her name, our daughter ran up, hugged him, called him Papa, and asked to be pushed on the swings. Karen gave him the evil eye, stalked off, yelled the word pedo while pointing at him many times, whispered something in another person's ear while still pointing at him, gathered what he assumed were her grandkids, and left. 10 minutes later, the cops show up and separate my husband and daughter. They interrogated them both, made my husband show his pictures, all of our daughter at my request as I couldn't be there, ran a check on him the whole 9, without even letting my daughter simply confirm, "That's my papa." She was crying and reaching out for him many times, obviously frightened to be separated. He was of course cleared, because he was literally just a dad at the park with his kid, but the damage was done. When she got home, she said she thought she and Papa were going to go to jail. Bonus annoyance. Our tags are expired by like a week. My husband was going to get them fixed on Friday, but we thought it better to stay home and do it Monday, given the massive-ass hurricane bearing down on us. So of course the cops caught it, and now we have an extra fine to pay that we don't have the money for. So thanks, Karen. My daughter now says she's afraid of the park and playground and never wants to go back, because she doesn't want her or Papa to go to jail. Since when did a father taking someone who is obviously his daughter to the park become a reason to call the cops, especially after she ran right up to him, hugged him, and called him Papa? Are people that unfamiliar with the idea that dads want to be involved in their kids' lives, or to give their partners a break? What about single, divorced, or same-sex dads? I almost feel bad for these idiots that they've never experienced a supportive partner being a good father and husband. I'm still in shock this even happened. Can't park like a civilized human? Well, good luck moving your crappy car. A few years back, I had this neighbor who, let's just say, was a fan of day drinking. And by that, I mean he was on a first-name basis with every adult beverage in the fridge. After a few too many, he'd hop in his car and proceed to leave it in creative parking spots. You name it, someone else's driveway, halfway into their lawn, or my personal favorite, the middle of the street like a personal barricade. One fateful day I roll home to find his car gloriously blocking my driveway, as if it had been abandoned mid-thought. Now, I'd called the police on him before and had it towed, but the guy was like a boozy boomerang. It never fazed him. So I figured it was time to take matters into my own hands. The next best option? I jacked up his car, popped it on dollies, and rolled it back to his driveway like some weird neighborhood valet service. But I wasn't done. Before I moved it, I did some precision engineering. With some scrap 2x4s and black paint, I fashioned myself a couple of low-budget car lifts. After retrieving my dollies from under his now rehomed car, I slid those blackened 2x4s under the rear axle, right where they'd sit just a smidge too high, leaving the rear tires hovering about 1/8 of an inch off the ground. And then I waited. It took him a solid week to figure out why his car wasn't moving. At first, he probably thought the universe was punishing him for his parking crimes. He'd rev the engine, get out, scratch his head, and then give it another go. Meanwhile, I enjoyed the show from the comfort of my living room. I moved shortly after, but I like to think, to this day, he still wonders what kind of magic curse got placed on his car. Don't want to pay me for the job I worked? Speakerphone will get you. Years ago, I worked on a video production shoot for a company in northern New Jersey. The day went well. I did my job and nobody said anything to me otherwise. I happened to connect with another camera operator this day and got his business card. I invoiced the company for the work I had done, and noticed after 30 days that it was still unpaid. I sent the invoice again via email, still did not get paid. Reached out to the company over the phone, and they had the balls to tell me they were not paying me for the day's work I had done, because, quote, I did not do a very good job. This was obviously news to me as, again, no one said anything to me the day of the shoot. Also, I did the work, which means I get paid. I reached out to the other camera guy whose card I had gotten, and he told me they tried to pull the same thing with him. He sent a letter on a letterhead from a law firm and forced the issue, and got paid. I followed suit and did eventually get paid. Now fast forward a year or two and I get a phone call one day. It's the same asshole who refused to pay me. He has me on speakerphone and is asking about the logistics of an upcoming shoot and blah blah blah. I said, "Let me stop you for a second, is this X of X company?" Yeah, he said. "You refused to pay me for a job I did 2 years ago, and now you have the audacity to assume I might work for you again? You're wrong. I don't work with unprofessionals like you." And hung up. So satisfying. I hope everyone in the room heard that and that he felt like the dumbass that he is. Alright friends, that's going to be all for today. Thank you so much for watching, I appreciate it. If you enjoyed, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So stay tuned for more and I'll see you next time.